But we're speaking here today on West African thought, West African tradition, and calculation. I use the term calculation over philosophy because typically when one speaks about a philosophy, it's just intellectual meandering. There really is no point to it. So, going right into it, I like to deal more with calculation, something that is applicable, something that adds to something, and something that we can apply right away. Before I begin to really get into the theories and the ideas, I want to ask, is anyone here familiar with Orisha, Ifa, or West African tradition at all? Okay. Anything African at all? Okay. Aside from the drumming and the dancing. Egyptian. All right, good. Okay, originally Kemetic. About when we're dealing with this tradition, and it's good kind of that no one knows, because it gives us a beautiful starting point where we can come from, which is a blank slate, which is good. There's no preconceptions. In our tradition, and I'm speaking about the Yoruba, who migrated out of Kemet, which many of you know as Egypt. Okay, but Kemet was actually the original name of that particular region. Kem meaning black, and it or et meaning the land of. Okay, so Kemet was said to be the land of the black faces. There were some Egyptologists who recoined it and said that Kemet actually meant the land of the dark soil. Okay, but this was incorrect. But we're dealing with the whole Nile Valley civilization, beginning in Uganda. Okay, when you're dealing with Egyptology or Egyptian thought, it gets more powerful the further down you go. Okay, Egypt was actually a colony that was on its decline. So all of the great pyramids and the structures and all of the things that we honor and we look at and we say, wow, this was amazing. This was actually a group of people who were declining. Okay, the area known as Somalia now was actually much more powerful. Back then it was called Punt. All right, and the Egyptians would go to the Dogon, who were more closer to the center, to go learn. But there was another group that came out of Kemet, or came out of Egypt, and they were called the Yoruba. And they settled in Nigeria, in West Africa. Okay, from that region, and from that culture and that group, I've learned some of my most profound and impactful understandings as it pertains to spirituality. Okay, this is where I received my high priest initiations. I'm initiated in several systems, about 6 of them. I don't really speak on them much because ultimately I don't really promote and push initiation into any system, even though I have a bunch of initiations. And the reason being is that, as I've told, I think someone here, I was doing a reading, that we're in a time now where there's been a polar shift. And there was a season on the planet, there was a season in the cosmos where we were very big on belief. And we were very, very big on worship and praise, meaning that we sent all of our energy, what we call Ashe. In our tradition, Ashe means power or spiritual authority. Okay, in other traditions they call it life force, or they call it chi, or they call it prana. Okay, mojo, swag. And so we had this idea of Ashe, of power, okay, and it's derived from different things. First, all things began with breath, which we called Emi, which means divine breath. It's the same breath. For those of anyone here familiar with the Christian Bible? A little bit? Okay, cool. All right, that's great. So, for many reasons. But in the Christian Bible, there's a creation story where it speaks about where God made man. Now, always understand something in Western mythology. Whenever man is mentioned, man stands for Memph Auf Nun. Memph Auf Nun. Memph means woman, Auf means man, and Nun means child. Okay, so man is woman, man, child. Not that it's premier or we're speaking about hierarchy, but what you'll notice is that the woman comes first. Okay, When you get into Eastern tradition, you'll find that 90% of it is feminine. All right? Now, again, that's not to big up the women in the room because, you know, I'm not one of them. Okay? I love being a man, and I love patriarchy. Okay? Matriarchy is cool, but there's a place for both of them. There's an understanding of balance. But patriarchy births out of matriarchy. Okay? God births out of a woman. In our system, our highest deity, its name is Olodumare. Olodumare. If we understand what that signifies, a serpent, right? What is a serpent? A what? Snuff time, yes, dragon, it could be a snake, okay, but we understand that it is something that sheds its skin, it renews, right? We got that part. Okay, so a serpent is so prevalent in so many Eastern traditions, like we have the Naga, right? When we're dealing with Hindi tradition, we have Kundalini, which is the serpent that is in our spine. Okay, in South Africa, when we're dealing with the Sangoma tradition, we have Kupalini. And Kupalini is a serpent in the spine. Okay, so what that signifies is evolution. Okay, but evolution that's achieved through steps, through stages. All right, and then, but we have in that word Olodumare, we have O, which was owner, remember that? We have Odu, which is womb, Mare is serpent. Okay, so Odu being womb, right? What is a womb? Yeah, it's, you know, but it's a whole, right? The entire planet is sitting inside of a womb. No? Everything that comes into existence comes from a womb. No? At some point, it's got to come out of a womb, right? That's why I was saying it's ridiculous to have square doors. It's ridiculous to have square windows, right? Because nothing is perceived out of a box. There's no shape in nature that resembles that. So it almost seems like by having me go through these square doors and look out these square windows, you want me to be something other than my nature. You want me to be stuck inside of a box. You want me to think in a linear fashion. So luckily, we have Olodumare, who reminds us that he is, or it is, the owner of the serpent's womb. The serpent represents evolution. Okay, in this society here, we have what's called the Caduceus staff. The Caduceus staff is what you see. I thought I was loud. Go beyond the curtain. So, you have the Caduceus staff, which we see on the side of ambulance, right? And it's the two serpents that are meeting each other at the head. Okay, in Hindi culture we call this Shiva and Shakti. In Voodoo or Voodoo, we call this Dambala and Ayurveda. All right, but all of this is a DNA double helix. Okay, spirituality picks up where science leaves off. Okay, if you ever want to understand the highest spiritual understanding of any group, study their mythology. It's all there. Trust me, it's there. All right, so we're talking about science here, but it's science for children. So if it's science for children, why am I teaching it to you? Your children. What's that? Definitely. We're challenging your understanding. Because we're all dumb. I know. We are. All of us. Because we're human. Because we're corrupted. Okay? From the moment we materialize, from the moment that we emerge from the serpent's womb, we began to corrupt. Our corruption is falling into a third dimensional reality, becoming human. The more human you become, the less of a deity you become. So what happens is our ancestors, who were so wise in their ways and actions, they said, you know what? At some point, our children, humanity, is going to fall so low that we're going to have to create diagrams, archetypes, to teach them the simplest of things. You go to Egypt, and you will see on shrine walls images of people having sex. Now imagine that for a moment. That they knew we would become so dumb, we would forget how to have sex. We don't think about it much because we honor, oh, I learned this new tantra position and breathe it. That's basics. You're supposed to already know that. You see? But we fell into the darkness of our humanity. The light fell. The Luciferian story. Remember that one? Okay? Where he said, I'm going to be better than you. And God said, you're supposed to be. I made you to be better than me. But that just means you got to fall down to the dirt. You got to go through the corruption. You got to learn about hot dogs, herpes, cheese doodles, Doritos, all the good stuff about humanity. That's going to corrupt you. And then it's going to make you fall in love with humanity. And you're going to have to make a decision at the heart chakra. Do you want to stay down here where all the colors are? Or do you want to go up here? Do you want to be blinded by the light or blinded by the dark? You pick. Either way, you're gonna be blind. You pick which one you want. Okay? So now we're going back to Olodumare. All right? I didn't forget. It's just a long road. Okay? And plus the interruptions. Okay? So Olodumare, the owner of the serpent's womb, what it represents is the next step in evolution. So, you are Olodumare because you are the next effort of evolution. In Egypt, we had the same entity, but we called him Atum Mare. Atum Mare. Atum is where we get the word atom, atomic beginnings. Is where you get Adam, as in Adam and Eve. So we're speaking about the beginnings of things, but the beginnings of things are always connected to the serpent. Because the serpent is always seeking to shed its skin and evolve back to the sky again. This is why if you look at old depictions of the devil, and I'm not talking about Satan or Lucifer, the devil. You look at old depictions of the devil, how do they look? Anybody remember? Because they don't show this one too much anymore. The horns, the tail, red, right? You got it. Now, we know there was a couple things wrong with that image, right? For one, there's no way hell could be hot. That's impossible. Because hell is now. But it's a state that you can achieve now, as is heaven. And it's the state when you're frozen in your ways and actions. You're dumb to the truth, blind to the truth, can't understand the truth. That's hell. That's freezing. Okay? So we even have agents on this planet that seek to sometimes bring that place of arrest, right? Because what I'm speaking about is being arrested in your transformation and your movement, okay? They bring arrest. Who are those agents? The government. But who are those agents of the government? No? Close though. You got the first part. Police. Now, police, what do they do when they first want to put you in hell? What's the first thing they do? Not before that. Freeze. Right? Because, and they say who they are. Freeze. Polar ice. I mean police. And they come to service, serve ice. What are they serving? Justice, just ice. Okay? You see, governments are designed by occultists. They know what they're saying and what they're doing. Okay? So, we understand that hell is a freezing place. But this old image of the devil, which was red representing the root chakra, okay? We always had this tail, and at the tail, at the bottom of it, there was like this little triangle, right? Okay? Now, what they didn't tell you is that that little triangle was supposed to signify a snake's head. Okay? And the reason that it was always pointing down was because it was pointing to the lower nature. But it had a desire to point up, to go back up to the God nature. Okay? This is where Atum Mare becomes wiser. Because Atum Mare or Oludumare is a child, is a baby. Whenever the Creator comes back to the planet, how does it come back? As a baby. So God is a big baby. The only thing that gets old is you. That's it. There is a saying in Egypt that was inscribed on temple walls. And a lot of times we know the first part of it, we don't know the other part of it. And it was know thyself. But this was the full inscription. Know thyself, O man, because in knowing thyself, ye shall know God. They don't tell you the last part. But why would you be called an old man? You're the only thing aging in the universe. That's it. It's only you. Because that is the corruption of your humanity. Your aging is your identity. Okay? You become more crystallized in an identity. So when I tell you, you should do this, or you should do that, or check this out, or check this out, the first thing you're going to tell me is what kind of person you are. You're going to tell me your zodiac sign. Something silly like that. Your zodiac sign only signifies what you were born as physically. Your body was born as that. Your soul is infinite. Your soul could care less about your zodiac sign. It only picked it because it knew that you would need that to balance yourself out. You see? That's why you get old. Because you get crystallized in what we call the personality. Personality is the worst thing going. Two of the worst things going when you're coming into your spirituality are your personality and your family. Yeah, I know. Don't worry though. The stuff I'm saying, no one else is going to say, so it'll balance itself out. Okay? Because as soon as you start working up, it's your family the first one to say you're not doing anything. What are you doing? That's crazy. We didn't raise you that way. Okay? And it's your identity that holds you victim because they say, you always like this, you were always this type of person. You were such a happy child. So now they lock you into an identity. The first person to ever put a hex on you was always your family. We're always worried about hexes and spells. It's always your family. You're so smart, you should be a doctor. I don't want to be a doctor, I want to be a puppeteer. That's what I have a life, my purpose, my divine purpose is to be a dog catcher. You want me to be a lawyer. I know it sounds extreme, but that is what we go through, okay? So Atumari or Olodumare in the Yoruba tradition is always pushing us to evolve, okay? Always pushing us to evolve. But we evolve through various means. In our tradition, we acknowledge the presence of not only our physical bodies, but we acknowledge the presence of our ancestors. They're still very much a part of our spiritual ecosystem. Our Orisha are very much a part of our spiritual ecosystem. And Orisha will be likened to what your understanding of maybe an angel. Anybody here know what an angel is? Anybody here not know what an angel is? Be honest, don't be embarrassed. Okay, an angel is an angle. The original pronunciation and spelling for angel, before they changed it in the 30s, was angle. They changed it because you might have figured out a secret. The angels are not for you to look at, oh, you're so beautiful and this and that, because you're older than the angel. You created the angels. There's stair steps for you to get back home. Remember, you're Olodumare, you're the supreme being. So your job as a human is to fall and then rise again, but this time you rise a little higher. In between, you get some help. Those help, some people call angels, some people call Orisha, some people call Lawal, some people call Necharu, some people call celebrities, which are just archetypes for me to figure out what I should do in my human working to get back home. Okay? So an angle of God is just a way to get back home. That's it. Aziel, Israel, Mikael, Gabriel, they're just ways and pathways to get back home. Nothing for you to glorify. In fact, they glorify you because you have the breath of life. They don't have that. The breath of life gives you will. Angels do not have a will. They only have consciousness and character. So if you have an Orisha or an angel or angle that is a complete angle only for warfare, tomorrow it cannot wake up and say that I will be an angle of love. It doesn't have that choice. The only one who was able to break free of that matrix that prison that God established was Lucifer. Because Lucifer said 10 times, I will, I will. Angels don't say I will. They have no will. The will comes from the soul, which comes from divine breath. If you do not have a soul, you're a zombie. You have no will. You're functioning on automatic function. Sometimes that becomes a problem in this society because you see other people who you think have a soul. Just because they can walk on 2 legs and speak English does not mean that they are man, Memph Alf Noon. You may be speaking to mankind. Right, know the difference? Don't know the difference? Okay. Right? He lands on the moon. Kinda, because we know he, But he lands on the moon, and what does he say when he steps out of the spacecraft?
First step for man.
There we go. 1 small step for man, 1 giant step for mankind. Remember, we're dealing with a cultist. He knew what he was saying. Why did he say it was a small step for man?
Because we have a lot more to achieve, right? We're trying to.
Man has already been to the moon. Mankind has never been to the moon. They didn't even go that day. You understand? Mankind are the soulless beings. They're kind of a man, but they're not man. Man possesses the breath of life, Memph Alf Noon, woman, man, child. They possess the breath of life. So what he was saying is that us soulless beings have now achieved this, something that man had already did. So everything on the planet is not what it appears to be. Some are just thought projections, okay? Your angels, your Orisha, your Lawal, your Necharu are projections from the astral realm. They are not eternal. The only thing that is as eternal is your soul. So that would mean what? The only thing that is real is your soul. Everything else is gonna fade. And if it's gonna fade, that means it was never real to begin with. It was just a projection that you needed to get what you needed. So in our tradition, in the Yoruba tradition, we have Orisha. And Orisha signify different steps or different projections. Just like your chakras. Everybody know what the chakras are, right? Okay. And we love our chakras, right? We love them. She's explaining it. You got it, right? Did she tell you it's a prison?
No, I didn't tell that.
You didn't tell her that part?
No.
We knew the chakras were prisons, right? Oh, okay. I gotta go back. Okay. Your chakras are houses, they're wheels, right? And each one has its own color of projection, right? Now at the bottom, you have red, that's your root chakra, okay? And lower than that, you have your foot chakra. Those chakras are black. At your crown, right? The crown chakra, at the top, it goes white. But really it's ether, so it's really black and violet. But that's another conversation. Okay, so you have black at the bottom, you have white at the top. So let's just say, to make it easy, you have the devil at the bottom, you have God at the top. And in between you have the angels, who all have a color specified to them. Right? Now the devil is evil. We know that, right? And you're okay with being evil. You ain't, right? But you know you're evil. You're evil, definitely. I'm not. But you guys are. I'm not evil though. It's all right though. What does Eve mean? Eve, right? God spoke to Adam in the cool of the evening. What is Eve? Woman. What does El mean? God. Evel means the woman God. If you didn't know. Okay? So when you're living in a patriarchal society where you have males who are afraid of their mothers, that would be considered evil. Because the womb, the vagina, can transform me in an instant. I don't want to be changed. I want everything to be the way it is. So that's evil. You see? But I'm not evil because I'm not a woman God. Okay. So you have the chakras, and each one houses your spirit at a certain time, depending on where you are in your life. Okay? But chakras have polarity, right? So you have like the solar chakra, which represents your personal identity. Okay? But that's when it's good. When it's out of alignment, what is it? Lack of identity. Lack of honesty, lack of expression, okay? Lack of singular purpose, no life purpose. So that's the hell of it. So chakras have a heaven and they have a hell. So you're stuck having to work between two different polarities. Does God have polarities? Probably not, right? Polarities are your trap of humanity. It's your prison. It has to be yin or it has to be yang. It has to be off or it has to be on. It has to be zero, it has to be one. That's a trap. That's called a prison. You look at the yin and yang, and I'm sorry for those of you who've had the tattoo. You look at it like it's a beautiful thing. The yin and yang symbol is nothing but an insignia of a prison. Your job is to find that middle balancing point where I'm not here, I'm not there. I'm whatever the heck I feel like being. Because I'm Oludumare. I'm the next step in evolution. I will be whatever I want to be when the sun comes up again. Not what the polarities dictate I must be. So your chakras in between, they're colors because they represent the things that you can see. The grotesque, mundane aspects of life. The things that are visible. The white at the top, if I shine a white light into your eyes, what happens?
Smaller.
It gets smaller, but what else? Blinded. If I put you in a dark room, what happens?
You don't see it.
Blinded. Okay? So, that means the dark ain't bad and the light ain't good. And that means the light ain't bad and the dark ain't good. It just is. It's the science of isness. Okay? And in between those colors, those chakras that you love so much, that's where you're experiencing pleasantness and unpleasantness. And it's a prison. It's an emotional prison. And your job is to get back up to where there are no colors, where there are no defining points. Everybody understand? So the Orishas are signified by these chakras, just like your angels are. They function out of these houses, and they all have their own heavens and they all have their own hells. And we want to get beyond their heavens and hells, and we only want to experience our heavens and hells that we create for our own reality. This is the mission of Atumare or Olodumare. Any questions? I might have gone over my time, so, oh no, I haven't. I must have.
Contacting your ancestors.
Contacting your ancestors. Okay, I didn't. Contacting your ancestors, I'm good? I told you I'm bad with time. I told you. I normally, when I do lectures, I have someone in the back giving me my cues. Okay? What I wanted to speak about, actually, in this segment was the science that we know as necromancy. Okay? Communicating with the Egun. Anybody familiar with necromancy? When I said necromancy, I saw this. I'm not going to say from who. So that person should be able to explain it. I'm not saying who it is, though.
know-it-alls. No, I'm playing. Necromancy, in a nutshell. Oh, did you want to explain it? Oh, okay. Okay, I got. Stop laughing at it. Okay. Necromancy is comprised of two words. Okay, you have necro, which means dead object. Okay, this is where we get the term Negro, means dead object. Not a good word. Okay, then you have mansi or mancia. Okay, that's the Latin, which means to bring forth or to understand. Okay, so necromancy is a form of divination with objects or people, individuals who are no longer living. Okay, that is necromancy. A lot of people, it's spoken about, it's in the Bible, you know, where it speaks about people who were raising the dead to ask questions, you know, and it was something that, of course, was spoken against. Some people also call it spiritualism. In our system, in the Yoruba system, speaking to who we call the Egun. Egun is what we call our ancestors. The word Egun means bones. Okay? Now, the significance of bones and the ancestors is this. In your bone marrow, blood is created. That's where your blood is made. So we always understood that the ancestors were not some external force, but in fact, the ancestors, yeah, I don't know, fire drill maybe. But we always understood that the ancestors were a force that lived inside of your blood, within your DNA. That takes us back to Olodumare. Okay? Your ancestors are a part of that helix, that information that is given for reproduction. Okay? So it was nothing for us to communicate with them. We didn't see that as anything that was outside of me talking to you right now, because they were very present. And we always wanted to make sure that they knew they were present. Okay? In my home in Nigeria, my next door neighbor, right? When I first built my home, I remember I went over to his home. He invited me over to have cola nuts. Cola nuts over there are like, I guess like inviting somebody over for a drink, you know. But you sit and it's a whole ceremony and you break the cola nuts. One thing in like certain regions where there's a lot of culture, it takes forever to get places. Because when people see you on the road, it's like a whole ritual. How is your family? How is your wife? How is your children? You gotta go through this whole long thing, and then you gotta ask them back. And then there's no such thing as like awkward silence in West Africa. Like you could just say those things and stand there and, you know, and that's okay because you're still communicating. Because they don't like a lot of talking, you see. Americans are always signified by the fact that they talk too much, and they hate that. So there will be like long pauses between conversations. So never be in a rush. You know, you will not get there. So I'm sitting there, right, and I saw this big piece of furniture. I was like, wow, that's beautiful. It's wonderful carving. And he said, yes, you know, that's my father. In the living room, they had their father's coffin. Okay? They are so connected with their ancestors that in some homes, in some villages, they don't even bury them outside. They bury them in the home, like they're right in the living room, so they're right there with everybody else. Okay? Now I know that may seem extreme for some of the people here, you know, but here, because of our socialization, we typically have a fear of the dead. Okay, a lot of that comes in. So many times people are so worried about hexes. You didn't just watch Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo, right? Every time they were running from something, it was either a ghost or a mummy. Every time. Okay? And what they were doing, the little children, they were teaching them to be afraid of spirits. And then what happened at the end, they would always pull the hood off and it wasn't really a spirit. So now spirits are scary, but they're not real at the same time. Cognitive dissonance, I don't know.
I never liked Scooby-Doo.
Me neither. Scooby-Doo was kind of boring. And Shaggy was always high. Always. I knew what high people looked like when I was a kid. Shaggy was high. Okay. So it's that understanding of the connectedness that we have with our Egun, or with our ancestors, that allows us to go to the next step in evolution. If we do not study that and understand that, we do not know really what our starting point is. Okay? Here's the challenge and the problem with necromancy, because so many people think it's such a cool thing. In Spanish, you have negro, which means dead object, okay? Because there was a time when certain people were considered to be like property. So they were just dead in black. But then there was a time when certain people were honored, and they were called Moreno or Morena, coming from Moor, the Moors. I mean, they ruled Spain for 700 years. So they had to give them some type of respect, okay? So there was always an understanding that you had things in necromancy that you could bring back to life, or you could communicate with things that were still alive. I want you to understand this is very important. If you have the breath of life that Olodumare gave you, and you're able to breathe into things and make them a living soul just by speaking to them, you can make them real. Is it then possible for you to animate a being on the planet who has no soul?
I would think so.
You wouldn't think so? So God cannot bring inanimate objects to life.
Yeah, because it's in your, it's perception.
So now, if you know you don't have a soul, right? What should your main objective be?
Getting one. Getting the
Or getting real close to those who do have one. Because they can sustain you. They can keep you alive, right? Think about the vampire movies. What are they always in search for? Plasma or blood. Plasma, right? Anybody ever see the shape of plasma, what it looks like? It's a spiral. Plasma that goes to the universe. Not this one, it's different, okay? It's shaped like a spiral, okay? Scientists have seen it. Isn't that kind of interesting when we say it's shaped like a spiral, and then we think, and I know you all know, and we remember that the word spiral and spirit are they actually the same exact word? I know you knew that. I know you did. So we have, yes you did. Yes you did. So we have vampires or vampirical people, vampirical energy who are not really animated, who seek for blood, plasma, energy, life force, chi, prana, ashe from those who actually do have souls. Okay? So sometimes when you're going by the stream or you're going into nature and you think you're connecting with a powerful nature spirit, you're actually connecting with a disincarnate spirit, a dead energy that will use you to come alive again. Now, of course, this goes so far. It's not. It has further implications even beyond the spiritual understanding. For instance, what kind of individual would just recklessly destroy life, or who would recklessly do anything they possibly can to hoard and hold all of the material resources on the planet?
They have no souls.
They have no soul, so they know this is it. When I leave here, I'm done. Other people like, when I go back home. You look at the word Zulu. Zulu means people from Mars. Okay, when you look at Eastern culture, or specifically West African culture, there was always an understanding that the creation story never began here. We were always dropped off from somewhere else. You look at the term alien. Before the 1940s, the term UFO was never used. Thank you. What they used was the term spirit. Then in the 40s, they started to use this term UFO. Very important, but they kept the word alien. Big mistake, because then now we can figure stuff out. Alien is comprised of two words, Ali, An. Ali means exalted. An means people from heaven. An alien is someone from heaven. That's all. Real simple. Okay, so when we understand this thing about the souls, right? If I'm a soulless individual and you have a soul, I have to figure out a way to keep your attention on me. Because just by you giving me your attention, I get to stay alive. As soon as, anybody remember Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger? You remember the first one I'm talking about? You remember how they beat him? Okay, I'll tell you. They were given advice that when a spirit, an entity comes to him like that turn your back on him, and he will go away. Remember the last scene? And she was like, "You're not real. You're not real. You're not here." And he's behind her like, "Look at me!" And then she woke up. Because if I give you my attention, I make you real. Attention is a very valuable thing, what we give our attention to. So if I have no soul and I want to be made real, I don't care what kind of attention you give me, just give it to me. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll shoot your child and I'll put it all over the news. Then you'll give me your attention again. Yeah, I know. But hey, they're scrambling. They get desperate. Those vampires, they start doing stuff. Trayvon Martin, bow. Now we got your attention. Because you guys thought you were going to be at fairs rubbing on crystals and reading tarot cards and forgetting about humanity and going to other dimensions. Oh no, I'm going to remind you of where you're at so you can come back down. There was a whole plane that a whole movie they did about it with Samuel Jackson. It was called Snakes on the Plane. He did two movies, Black Snake Moan, Snakes on the Plane. It was very deep, and it was about bringing Kundalini energy back down to the earth. And then you watched it, and you got programmed by the symbols of it, and then you had to go get a reading afterwards. The stuff wasn't working right in your life. Couldn't figure out why, because somebody did a hex on you called the movie. Okay, so necromancy is the communication with the dead. You don't want to communicate with the dead. You want to communicate with the living who are now in other dimensions. Okay? Very key. Because a lot of times when we're doing spiritual work and we call upon our ancestors, we just say, "I call upon the spirits of the ancestors." Bad move. Because some of your ancestors are dead. They were dead when they were here. And they never chose the gift of life while they were here. They never chose to receive the soul mission. So they faded. But then you have those who did. They're still alive. Those are the ones that you want to divine with. Those are the ones that you want to communicate with. The best way to communicate with those Egun or ancestors is through dark water. What is dark water? The subconscious mind. That's why you're so scared of it. That's why there's creatures down in the dark water, in the ocean's depth. Squeeze, ocean creatures. They look different than the fish that are up top. Why? Because they're under enormous pressure. How much pressure have you applied to your issues to keep them down so you don't have to deal with them? Right? So if somebody squeezed you like that for 15 years, imagine how hideous you would look. That's what we call demons. That's why when you close your eyes to meditate sometimes, you see these horrible images. And then you do like this. Light and love, light and love, light and love. Because your demons, your sea creatures are coming to the surface and saying, "Hey, you're going to deal with me today." No, I'm not. Get back down. Okay? Those are the entities that you need to be communicating with. because they're your toxins. They're the stuff that you have to do. The word demium comes from the word daemon. D-A-E-M-O-N. Daemon means hidden genius or unseen substance. That's all the word demon means. Doesn't mean anything else. Doesn't mean devil's helper and all that stuff. It means hidden substance or hidden genius. Your genius lies in your dark spaces. It is what you do not want to see that makes you a deity. These are the things that transform you. It's the things that you want to see in the light that enlighten you. You cannot live solely in enlightenment because you will be blind. You cannot live solely in transformation because you will be blind. It is the combination of enlightenment and transformation that gives rise to the new era of Oludumare, the new era of the gods. Communication with your Egun, communication with your ancestors happens with communication in the subconscious mind. That's where it begins. And in reality, that's where it ends. But it's all dealing with your blood, with the DNA double helix, with the messages that are in there. Okay? That is how you communicate with your Egun, through your evolution. Okay? And by repeating their movements. In Africa, you see there's a lot of different dances, right? And all of those dances, for the most part, they repeat some type of movement that the village does. So you have dances of like the hunter, where you have like you're pulling the arrow. Why? Because the more I do this, the more I'm doing what my grandfather did every day. And the more I do what my grandfather did every day, it sends a symbol to him where he says, oh, you want me. It's just like when I leave this planet, my offspring may be in a space like this teaching one day. And they may say, hey, I called forth my grandfather. And when I see the ones doing this, I'm going to say, oh, you want me. You know, the ones doing something, they might be playing basketball. So I didn't play basketball. I wrestled. So, you know, when I see this, it's okay. That symbol speaks to my energy. It's the symbol that repeats. They may, I like rum. They may pour out rum. Oh, that's for me. I'm the rum guy. Are angels living?
Like the archangels, are they considered living?
They're living, but they die. Angels are not eternal. Okay? Because angels live on the astral planes. And the astral planes, they're levels. Anything that has a level is not real. That's why we get so excited about the 5th dimension. What about the 6th dimension? 7th dimension, 8th dimension? We can just keep going. It gets silly after a while. So we understand that anything that we have the ability to count that has levels is not real. It's just a stair step. So angels do not survive forever. However, angels, the one desire that they have, the one speck of will that they have, is to piggyback with you. When you ascend, they have a desire to ascend with you. If you have a peer-to-peer relationship with them, which you do, I know that, then you can bring them with you. But if you have a relationship where it's master-slave, where you're always begging them, asking them for something, and you're just touching the hem, you can't do anything for them. It's not just about what you do, what they do for you, it's about what you do for them. Because remember, you're Oludumare. You actually have dominion over the angels. You can hook them up and say, hey, you were good to me when I was on the planet. Come with me. You can do that if you're functioning at that vibration. The ones that are dead always come to you through your chakras. They come through you with the feeling. So the first thing, if you go by the water, oh, this feels so good. That's not the ones. The ones that are living always come through the pineal. Yes. They're called the Tamahu.
How does that happen? I mean, it's not just...
They were created.
But they weren't intentionally created by, like for zombies or they were just...
They were intentionally created. There's a book called The Kabbalion, which were the words of Tahuti, of Thoth. You might know him as Thoth. Or Moses, some people know him by. And he speaks about the biggest problem that they had at that time, and they called them the Tamahu. And the Tamahu was the created man. And they called them the soulless individuals. So they were purposely created. We have it now. It's called cloning. Cloning. So we didn't stop doing it. We know him as Jesus. Because his name is spelled ESU, Eshu. His symbol is the cross. In order to get to the other spirit, you must go through him. But if you take a J and put it on the front and an S and put it on the back, okay, you got Jesus.
I have to spin.
Yeah, head of spinning.
Do we miss anything?